But thank you for agreeing to sit down with me.
No, all good. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
I guess first things first, I'd love to get your thoughts on the sort of season overall, the 2026 season. For the audience, we're recording this before CFO's quarterfinal match against KT, which should be pretty exciting. But your
Yeah.
general thoughts on our inaugural year in this sort of global system.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's been a pretty successful showing, ultimately. Like, a lot of nerves coming in, I think, from, the VCS fans, LJL fans, everyone involved in the LCP as to whether this merger was correct. And I think CFO obviously have proven that it was correct. I even think the strength we saw from GARM at MSI, Team Secret Wales to a point at Worlds, do prove that this was a pretty correct move. I think, like, you've had the opportunity to show that some of the veterans can find success. People like Maple and Casa, rough start to split three, still able to push through and make it into the Worlds. Had a poor showing ultimately, but I think their issues that they've had for 3 years was still there. So much to be expected. Team Secret Wales, I think, is a really important one because so many rookies, like you've got Dyer and Histo, both 18 years old. They've now proven that you can come into this, the big leagues, a tier 1 league, and really prove your worth. They're the only team this year to beat CFO domestically in a best of. And I think that speaks to just being able to level each other up in the system. I think before, when it was the VCS, when it was the PCS, you'd have two, good teams. Maybe you'd have three. But it wouldn't really push the teams very far. And I think it wouldn't give them a good opportunity to grow where you do now. You get that cross between the VCS and PCS specifically, where that's given the opportunity for CFO to actually be as good as they are. And now at Worlds, we've, after 10 years, made it into the quarterfinals. And I think that speaks volumes to just how successful this merger was. And it gives a lot of hope to what the future can look like, considering, again, this is only our first year.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, a lot of it's very hopeful for me to see a lot of young talent, especially on the development side for CFO. A lot of these players have, come up through the woodwork, and a lot of them together as well. Obviously, we saw that story from Driver and Rest, and how
Yeah.
close they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like, obviously there are some veterans, right? Like Junja, I think you'd consider a veteran by this stage.
Yeah.
Kaiwing, absolutely a veteran at this stage. But you've brought back Kaiwing and Doggo, right? Doggo and Kaiwing, they were the bot lane on that really famous PSG roster where Doggo went to, I believe it was MSI on loan with them. Looked amazing. He went to the LPL, looked pretty poor. Now he's come back, got Kaiwing again. They've got an amazing bot lane for themselves, arguing to be the best bot lane that are at Worlds. I mean, Doggo specifically, I do think is the best AD carry performing so far. But yeah, you've got this good mix, right? Like Junja's very, very well established. He's a very strong player. Doggo as well is kind of coming back to the LCP, looks very strong. But Hongq in the mid lane, again, another 18-year-old. He was the youngest at the tournament for the past tournaments. Now it was Histo this time, but still, a rookie year, making it to quarters for the first time in 10 years. It really does speak to the family dynamic, and I think you can't have that dynamic without having someone that is learning and it like has that hunger to prove themselves. So I do think, yeah, showing the ability to grow talent and showing the ability to work together between the veterans of the league and also the rookies of the league is really important, and I think CFO really do embody that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask as well, how was Da Nang? Obviously, I only saw photos briefly in parts of the broadcast of the
Yeah.
venues and the crowds, but a first appearance for what APAC road shows are capable of.
Yeah, I mean, Da Nang itself was just incredible. The only bad thing about Da Nang, and this is not because I went over there and I ended up getting sick, but like part of that could have been because I was in hospital and then the planes, so I won't like credit that to Da Nang, but like it was very hot. It was incredibly hot and so humid as well. Like Auckland gets pretty humid, and that's what I'm used to, but it is nothing like Da Nang was. It was actually insanity. But aside from that, like the fans were amazing. I got recognized by so
Oh,
many
wow.
of the Vietnamese fans because I did one singular podcast at that stage with Hoan Luan, who is like the biggest name in League of Legends for Vietnam. So I did that one podcast with him, and then all of a sudden everyone in Vietnam seemed to know who I was, which is really, humbling, I guess, as the first time that's really happened to me, to be recognized so openly. But I mean, I loved it. The people there were incredible, so helpful. Everyone I dealt with knew English as well, which is obviously by design. But it was like really comforting knowing that, like, okay, especially because I was sick, like if I needed medicine or anything like that, which I did, throat lozenges or things to try and keep back a cough. The people there were able to help me. They'd go to the pharmacy for me while I was at the stadium and things like this. So just super helpful, lovely people, and I think the talent that they had in Vietnam was amazing. Like, again, the cast is helping me, but on stage talent, there was some fantastic cosplays, and just the
Mm.
crowd as well, particularly on the Sunday, were really eager to get behind their teams, and they were very loud. I don't know what you hear on the broadcast in terms of the fans, but being at the stadium, they were so loud and really excited. When Team Secret Wales were coming onto the stage, and if Team Secret Wales had a good showing in a team fight, whatever it may be, they were so excited, and it was really cool to be there.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like arenas when it
Yeah.
comes to esports, that's for sure. But like you and Blue Panda have more or less been the sole English voices for our region over the past year. Obviously, our co-streamers as well. But you've cast the PCS for so many years. What's it been like dipping into this wider unified ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been too much of a learning curve for me in some ways because, like, I mean, you look at GARM, for example, they're a team that I know very well from watching them internationally. So, like, learning about them wasn't too hard. The same as both DFM and SHG because they'd come over to the PCS playoffs in the year prior. So I was pretty well aware of those guys as well. But when it comes to like Team Secret Wales and Vikings, I did certainly have to do a bit more research coming into the splits. But I mean, very quickly, especially those teams with just how they play League of Legends, you kind of, after two series, know exactly what their identity is, right? Like they are bloodthirsty. They're going to beat you if they're better than you, and even if they're behind, you cannot count them out because they're just going to fight. So it was, I mean, the hardest part I think is learning some of the history of the players. I think because obviously as casters particular, I find my job at least is to tell the stories of the players. Like I'm essentially a vessel, right? And especially in a region that doesn't speak a whole lot of English, I'm a vessel for trying to get the stories of these players out there to the wider world and the English speaking world. And for the PCS players, that was super easy for me because I've watched them for so many years. But for the VCS teams in particular, I had to definitely do a bit more research coming in to make sure I could do justice to the story like Kiaya's of needing to leave school, not having an education, and GARM provide him that education. Like stories like this are super important that fans know because it gives you a reason to get behind that player, and it gives a lot of validation to the career they've had. So I think, yeah, that is mainly it. The research I had to do a lot more going into the split, but as soon as split one started, it became a lot easier because it was just very obvious to work out each team's identity.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess going into more of like the gameplay side of things now, how would you rate APAC's adaptation to Fearless Draft? Obviously, we've seen teams like Team Secret Wales and CFO sort of utilize that double top laner thing to
Mhm.
best fit the situation. Assuming Fearless is here to stay, what do you want to see more of from our teams in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, from our teams, and honestly, just the wider world, is this has been one of the lowest variety world championships of all time. We've had something like, I'd have to go check, but it's something like 67 to 70, something like that amount of champions. And in years prior, by the time we're at this stage, we're usually at like 80. So despite the fact we have Fearless Draft, it feels like almost it's worked in the opposite way somehow, where we're just getting less variety than usual. And I think part of that is because in years gone past, you'll be like, okay, these five champions are the core of the meta. And then you could realize that, okay, teams are probably going to pick these five champions and you can work out new niche picks around it. But now that that's gone, it's kind of like, okay, well, these are the 10 best champs and then those are gone. Now these are the 10 next best champs and now those are gone. And I think there's a really important thing that you can do. And Vikings, I have to credit them, are really good at doing this is identifying, similar to years gone by, except having more depth to it, where, okay, well, these five champions are probably what they're going to pick in game one. Wait, of course, a little bit into draft to see if that's the direction they're going, and then counter those picks coming through. Like, they were really good at bringing out the Ziggs in the mid lane against Azir, and we've started to see that a bit more at Worlds now. They also did, if you remember, during the promotion qualifiers, they picked Sion early on. Everyone picked Sion. The enemy team tried to counter it with a Kled, and then they just sent Sion mid into an Ari. It's like, wow, this is like Ari cannot do anything to Sion, so already a good matchup there, and then you get Fiora into Khalid, which is also a good matchup. So I think like I'm trying to be a bit smarter in navigating these drafts and not just thinking, okay, tier 1 champs game 1, tier 2 champs game 2, tier 3 champs game 3 is a better way to go about it. Because I mean, CFO have done the best out of our teams at drafting, but even their drafts are very exploitable if you try to, right? Like, I mean, our most recent, our game 2, sorry, against FlyQuest, if Quad was able to play Anivia, like Caps was able to
Yeah.
do, it's like, wow, this champion is Exodia against us. We have to be very careful of this champion, but we can do the same thing to other teams. I don't think we will, because we quite often just see what LCK, LPL do and just, all right, that's what we're going to do. But teams like Vikings have done it, and I hope other teams learn from the Vikings, which, in terms of the way we've played the map, we have. So I hope when it comes to drafting, we're able to do the same.
I guess, like following up on that, the meta over the course of this year as well has definitely favored that early proactivity with the feats of strength, with void grubs, with all the plates and all that. And we've seen our teams really master that stage of the game, but come the 20-minute mark, things begin to look a little bit shaky and a little bit unable to consistently close out games. I'd love to get your analysis on things.
Yeah, I mean, I think our objective setups aren't the greatest, and in the early game, you don't really, like the first 2 dragons, first void grubs, you don't really need an objective setup, right? Like void grubs, quite often, whoever's on them first will get 2, whoever's on them second get 1, or you're trading it for a dragon. Depending on the team comps, I usually prefer the dragon, because quite often it's not like a team just has a clear, easy way to hit towers, right? So it's like, okay, well, dragons are a clear win con if you're able to keep stacking them. And I think the problem comes around the 20-minute mark is, in the LCP, there's a clear difference between the level of play between, I'd say, honestly, CFO and the rest of the teams. Like, I think that is clear. But then even going further than that, I'd say, like, you'd have to bunch Team Secret Whales, PSG, and GARM. Not every time PSG, but, like, for the majority of the year, PSG would be in there. And then the bottom 4. And I think a lot of the year, you get away with, okay, we'll start the Otacon, and we're just better, so we get the Otacon. But you go up against like HLE and AL, you can't do that anymore. And I think at the international stage, and this has been shown time and time and time again, I feel like Otacon is such a bait objective where if you get it, amazing, like it's going to help you a lot. But the risk of getting it is just not worth the reward. I mean, against AL, right? We could have been 3-0 if we didn't start that Otacon. We very rarely could have been 3-0 after game 3 if we did not start that Otacon. And I think it's just like, okay, should you be the team that aggresses onto the Otacon, or should you try and play for other things while actively defending Otacon? And I think that is a much easier way to play League of Legends, because at the 20-minute mark, Otacon just does so much to disallow you from fighting. You know, the shred of your armor, the amount of damage it does. So I just don't think it's worth it. And I think CFO probably at this stage will realize it, because of how many games have gone down the gurgler, I suppose, because of that objective. And I hope we start to see more teams, even internationally, not just CFO, but like every single team should probably start to realize it's a better objective to defend than it is to attack, and start to play around, the Otacon in such a way that they're able to do so.
Yeah. I guess the next sort of thing I want to go into, less towards the gameplay side, but there is an elephant in the room that we as Oceanians would be remiss not to address. Our personal region has had a pretty bad performance across the year, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
As we move to this sort of like regional model for APAC, what steps do you think we can sort of take to get on track and contend for a spot in the 2027 season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been very vocal about our ability to achieve this, and I don't think it's even a far-fetched thing to achieve. What it's going to rely on, obviously, like I've said this in my video, is I do not believe there's going to be much money in this for players, and because of that, I would expect anyone that wants to compete to, first and foremost, focus on what is important to them, be it work, be it study, be it whatever it may be. But even in the limited time we do have, whether it be, 10 hours a week, whether it be less than that, as long as it's productive, there's no reason why we couldn't make it there, right? Like, we have people like BioPanther and Violet in the region who are as good as at least the bottom tier of LCP. I mean, I'd have BioPanther as one of the top laners of the LCP. Violet performed perfectly fine on the Chiefs against pretty much everyone he went up against. And you can have players like that if they wanted to stay involved, if they could, almost treat Oceania as CFO mini, where you really want to focus on some of these up-and-coming rookies that never had the opportunities that the people like BioPanther or Violet had. You really want to encourage them to get involved, to start learning the competitive 5v5 side of League of Legends. And you really want the people like BioPanther, Violet, etc. Why not? To be able to be the ones to lead them in that direction. And as long as there is people that have aligned views on how to do it, it's certainly an achievable thing. I mean, I can only assume based on this year, obviously things can change, but like if DFM this year's standards were competing against what I hope we could look like at the end of 2026, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that we could take that spot. And it's just about people that are passionate, people that are passionate, have the drive, and obviously have the potential to do so, all aligning themselves for one goal. And that is not an easy thing to achieve, but if we get past that sort of speed bump, then I actually think it is so achievable, and it really could be a historic moment for Oceania. And so I really do hope that I can in some way help to do that alongside people like yourself that wouldn't be involved in necessarily playing the game, but being able to give voices to those players and give them maybe hope to achieve that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know the answer to the next question because it's probably very similar to my own. But why do you continue to fight for Oceania and APAC? What drives you to keep going in the face of constant setbacks?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the passion of the players and the not only the players, the community. Again, people like yourself. There's many people who have reached out to me in support. Like, I'll do whatever I can. Like, I'm not a player, but I'll do whatever I can to help you with this. And it's people like that I want to do it for, because ultimately, like, and this year made me want to more so than ever. Is this year Oceania didn't really have anything to get behind. Like, we had the Chiefs. But I'll be very honest in this, because I feel like it's, I got to do justice to why I'm here. Is I don't care that the Chiefs went 0-20. I do not care that happened. Would I have preferred them to go 0-20 with 5 OS players to give those, opportunities over to more Oceanic talent? Yes, absolutely I would. But more importantly than that even, I think there was a huge miss on the ability to give fans something to get behind. There was no content coming out of the Chiefs. Every single week, all we got was a match day post and a defeat post. And it was like, okay, like, surely we can do a video of BioPanther and why not going to a night market or a house tour, or this is us on the way to the stadium. Like, there's just easy things that you can literally pull out your phone and record. And I think there are definite passionate Oceanian fans. Like, that is very obvious to see. That is more obvious than even seeing the players that exist. And I think those are people that deserve to have something to get behind, because they are fans of Oceania, they are fans of League of Legends esports, and they're just fans of the game. And I think, myself in a reasonably privileged, I mean, I say privileged very like sheepishly, because I mean, a lot of the time I don't feel too privileged. But obviously I am in a privileged position. The fact I get to do this, the fact I get to represent Oceania and LCP is a privileged place to be, and I realize that. And I think I want to use that platform to give the fans something to get behind, something to cheer for, and to give the players a platform to aspire to something greater.
I love that. I love that. I guess on a more positive note, sorry, I just woke up. On a more positive note, beating teams like T1 and FlyQuest plus Apex, right? I mean, throughout this entire year, First Stand, MSI, incredible performances. I think it's safe to say there probably is going to be an influx of Western viewers to our league next year. Sort of building off of what you said about more content, all that kind of stuff. What are your hopes for APAC from the broadcast, the community, the teams and players themselves to capture that spotlight and attention and really build up, the viewership and the fandom of our region?
Yeah, I mean, what I think will happen, and like maybe this is doomer, but this is somewhat coming off the back of, CFO already having good performances at First Stand and MSI, is there will be an influx of people who are specifically CFO fans, which is great. Like, I'm not upset about that by any stretch of the imagination. But the problem we always have been fighting with, and maybe this will change next year, obviously not a whole lot of information's come out about what next year looks like, is we fight for the same time slot as LCK and LPL. And I mean, everyone is very well aware that the best League of Legends in the world comes from the LCK. That is just blatantly obvious. Like, no one's going to make an argument against that. And so that makes it very difficult, because not only do they have a very professional and polished product, where, there's a lot of investment going into both the LCK Global and the LCK Korean, so that by default makes it generally a better viewing experience, but they just have the best League of Legends. Now, CFO definitely have gained a lot of fans over the course of this year, and I think those fans, a lot of them will, come and watch us, and I hope, I mean, mainly what I need to do as someone that is actively there on the broadcast is try and find a way to spread awareness of the LCP, spread awareness of the players, spread awareness of the stories. And, a lot of that's hard to do because I don't speak Mandarin, but we've got people like Luria on Twitter. There's people like Vivian who are constantly sharing the stories of these players. And I think it's always going to take a concerted effort where, I don't speak Vietnamese, I don't speak Mandarin, but I can tell the information I do know, I do see on threads or whatever to the English public. And I do hope that now, and I do believe this will happen, is now we will see more respect coming out of the wider English community, because the start of this year was entirely filled of minor region this, minor region that, like people just completely ignoring the fact we exist, and I think that certainly will be gone now. But I don't know if it will necessarily increase the fanship so much outside of like directly CFO fans.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess, yeah, like what's the, out of everything, what would be the most crucial thing that you reckon we need to focus on? Obviously Piotr, the head of product for APAC, stated back in July that he envisions our region as the most watched in the world in a few years. I think it's doable personally, but obviously you're directly embedded in the community now. I'd love to, get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to people like myself and Blue Panda and whoever wants to be involved to start increasing the content around it. Try and make some fun engagement, like content that people could engage with, that they enjoy, that like gets them really excited to watch the LCP, or to, even if it just comes to MSI or whatever, to see the LCP in action. Because I think that is really important. Like, years gone by, half the reason why I believe the LCS or LTA has gone down in viewership is because there's just less personalities to get behind. There's less content coming out of the region comparative to before. And that's something that, we can, as LCP fans, as LCP crew, staff, whatever, can provide to people. And we have the one very lucky thing we have is that the personalities in our league are so easy to utilize for that. I mean, Taki, Driver, obvious examples. You've got Honkyu and Doggo just creating yaoi content every second day. I mean, Rest and Driver are just showering together for some reason. Like it's very easy to make content around this stuff and to give exciting, funny posts for people to engage with. And I think it's important that we utilize that to actually bring exposure to the LCP.
Yeah. So I guess to sort of finish things off, looking forward to next year. Obviously, our year isn't finished yet. CFO might, show KT how much of a fraud they are. They might make it to semis. They might make it to finals. They might pull a TPA. Maybe this is copium. I'm not sure. But what are your hopes for the region? Not just in terms of like international results, but holistically as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopes for the region. I mean, for this tournament directly, I really, really hope we can make it to finals, because I think if we've made it to finals, we've gone over the hardest hurdle of either Genji or Hanwha Life. And at that point, I actually think there's a reasonable chance we win Worlds. I think this first series is almost the dream draw. Like, I think out of everyone that you're likely to have a chance against, like, okay, Top Esports got the dream draw in getting G2, but if you end up in Top Esports' position, there's a chance you're getting Hanwha Life or Genji as well. So, like, I'm pretty happy with drawing KT over AL. I think this is a super winnable series. And I think if we do this, semi-finals is going to be the hard one. Regardless of if we get Hanwha Life or Genji. That is, like, I mean, for me, the quarterfinals between Genji and Hanwha is kind of like the finals. Like, I think that is just the two best teams in League of Legends right now. Argument for AL as well. But yeah, it's if we get past semi-finals, I'm going to be so confident that we can win it, because that is going to be the hardest series. But I don't actually think we're going to win the semi-finals. I think we can win this one. So, I mean, if we get to semis, I'm super happy. If we get to finals, I can't use the word for this interview, that's for sure. But holistically, looking past this year, is I do hope viewership increases for the LCP English. I mean, not only English, but like Vietnamese as well, because I know that quite often the LCK gets more viewers in Vietnamese than the LCP. Not always, but like, quite a lot of the time. And I think that's like, okay, hopefully there's something we can do there as either myself, doing the Blunt Talk podcast and the Vietnamese guys, or, the Vietnamese personalities themselves can do something to get more engagement from the Vietnamese fans, because like, as everyone in the world knows, those guys are, alongside the Brazilians, like the most passionate fan base there is. I think now one good thing about CFO's performance is there's going to be a lot more pride coming out of the Taiwanese fans, because there are a lot of Taiwanese fans, but they have pretty consistently had a very negative view in terms of like, they don't want to upset themselves. They don't want to get themselves high expectations and then become upset because it's happened 10 years in a row. But I think now that CFO have proven it's possible, we'll see better fanships coming out of the not Team Secret Wales, out of the Taiwanese fans, which is really good. And then the English is the hardest one, because like, how do we make this better or more enticing, I guess, than LCK or LPL? Because that's a really, really hard thing to do, considering the history between those two regions, the assumed strength of those two regions, and, I mean, just the relative nature of us being very, very infantile in terms of them. So, yeah, I'm not sure how to do it, but I do hope, again, viewership increases. I hope Peter's right and we can continue to grow and one day be the most watched league in the world. I don't know how we go about that. I think CFO have done a good job to help us, and now it's about somehow us doing more to ensure that stays over the course of the next couple of months until we start in 2026.
Yeah, I guess. And yeah, are there any like final parting words you want to say to the audience as we head into 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I guess before I wrap up, thank you to everyone over the course of 2025 who have watched, supported the LCP, the teams of the LCP. Even before that, I was doing the PCS. People who supported me back then, supported the teams back then. Huge thank you to you guys for being loyal and sticking to it. And looking ahead, I mean, I hope we can all get behind CFO. Send them our encouragement, send them whatever engaging posts, the shit posts I've been posting on Twitter, things like that. Just get behind them. Obviously, going into 2026, we can go in, hope that we get a similar roster from CFO, if not the same. Get behind them once again. Get behind all of the teams from LJL to PCS to VCS, as well as I hope everyone involved in Oceanic Esports can stick along with us for just one more year, because 2027 we're gonna have a team back in there, baby.
Hell yeah! Well, thank you for joining me, Vestion, and have a good one.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much, man.
There we go.